Hello, I'm Chris Barrow with the BBC News. An emergency session of the UN Security Council to discuss the conflict in Lebanon has seen repeated international calls for a diplomatic solution. The French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot told the meeting that his country was working with the US to broker a 21-day temporary ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah to allow time for broader negotiations.
La guerre n'est pas inéluctable.
War is not inevitable. A diplomatic solution is possible. In recent days, we've worked with our American partners on a temporary ceasefire platform to enable negotiations. This platform will be made public very soon, and we're counting on both parties to accept it without delay.
Earlier, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres warned that all hell was breaking loose following days of cross-border fire.
We should all be alarmed by the escalation. Lebanon is at the brink. Since October, nearly 200,000 people within Lebanon and over 60,000 from northern Israel have fled their homes. Many lives have been lost. All these must stop.
The Lebanese Health Ministry said more than 70 people were killed by Israeli airstrikes on Wednesday, while Hezbollah has continued to fire into Israel. The head of the Israeli military has told the army to be ready for a possible incursion into southern Lebanon. The United States has announced a further $375 million worth of military aid for Ukraine, including HIMARS precision rocket launchers. The Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, said the new assistance would be deployed as quickly as possible. It comes ahead of a meeting between President Biden and Volodymyr Zelensky, who wants permission to use long-range Western weapons against Russian military sites. Earlier, President Putin made a fresh threat that Russia could use nuclear weapons if it came under attack. The state prosecutor in Benin says 3 men, including a former minister and the man in charge of President Patrice Talon's security, have been arrested on suspicion of plotting a coup. Mario Metanu said the former sports minister, Oswald Homeki, had been caught handing over 6 bags of cash to the head of the Republican Guard. Also detained was a businessman, Olivier Bocco, a friend of Mr. Talon, who'd recently indicated he had political ambitions.
This sum was allegedly collected by Mr. Olivier Bocco and loaded into a vehicle belonging to Mr. Oswald Amaki and bearing a false registration. When the vehicle and the sum of 1,500 million francs were handed over, the criminal brigade arrested Mr. Amaki and the commander of the Republican Guard. Within the hour, Olivier Bocco was also arrested.
Mr. Bocco's lawyers say he's innocent and have demanded his immediate release. This is the world news from the BBC. The US Congress has passed a stopgap bill to avert a partial government shutdown, despite a significant number of Republicans in the House of Representatives voting against it for failing to achieve new federal spending cuts. The package, negotiated with cross-party support, funds the government at current levels until late December. The House Speaker, Republican Congressman Mike Johnson, also announced additional funding for the Secret Service in the wake of 2 apparent assassination attempts on Donald Trump.
We are providing Donald Trump with the protection that he needs in the face of dangerous threats of would-be assassins and terrorist regimes like Iran. That is a new spending amount, $231 million. It will be dedicated to the protection of presidential candidates, and it is limited to that. And it is contingent upon the Secret Service's complete cooperation with our oversight investigations over these assassination attempts.
The International Monetary Fund has approved a $7 billion loan to Pakistan. $1 billion of that total is to be made available immediately, but Islamabad has promised to increase its tax take and to introduce policies that promote economic stability. A United Nations report warns that an explosion in demand for cooling systems in developing countries is hampering efforts to limit global warming. The UN Environment Agency says there'll be a 7-fold increase in the use of air conditioning, fridges and refrigerated transport in Africa by 2050, and a 300% increase in Asia. The cooling sector already uses a fifth of the world's electricity. Plans have been unveiled for a new stage production of the Shakespeare tragedy Hamlet that will fuse theatre with the music of the Grammy Award-winning British band Radiohead. The show will see a cast of 20 musicians and actors perform a deconstructed version of the band's 2003 album Hail to the Thief, blended with the narrative and action of the play. That's the latest BBC News.